So we're sitting in my studio right now here in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
I just finished a meeting with a director, a guy named Dave Wasson. We're working on a new show for Netflix called Cuphead, the animated series, which is based on a video game. I don't know if you're familiar with the game Cuphead.
Yeah, I own it. I own the game.
Oh, good. So you're familiar. Okay. So maybe I don't know if you heard or not, but that's being developed at Netflix as a proper series. Based on the success of the game and how popular it was, they realized this could become an actual, you
Yeah.
know, thing. So it's pretty exciting. We were just working on music for a character named Kala Maria, which is this sort of sea monster woman. So I was writing a piece of music for that, and he likes it. So we move on to the next phase. It's kind of great.
Yeah, that sounds great. I've been vaguely keeping track on the Cuphead TV show and a Netflix show or whatever.
Right. I haven't announced actually that I'm the composer on it. So
Yeah, yeah,
that's that's new information.
yeah. If I put this public, I'll have the scoop.
Right, right.
Yeah,
So what are you what are you what are we doing this for again? Is it for a school project or is it a
it's for a school project. Yeah,
oh
it's
great.
I'm I'm doing it media course, and
Great. Uh-huh.
I have to produce a documentary, like a little documentary on sound in animation.
Great. Okay,
And,
that's really
you
good.
know, I have to get an interview from someone who's like in the field, I guess, and
Sure.
so.
How did you find me?
I mean, I've been a fan of your stuff for a while.
Thank you.
I was really big into Harvey Beaks when that came out.
Harvey's a really wonderful show. I feel so lucky to have been
Yeah,
on that show. Yeah.
your
That's really,
score
really
is
cool.
really good.
Thank you.
I like it.
Yeah, we're all very proud of that show. I mean, I think it deserved a lot more attention than it got. I wish it had a longer life and a lot more like commercial success, maybe. But I think the people that found it and like it really like it. So that's a
Yeah,
nice thing.
it's really
Yeah.
special.
Yeah. Thank you. No, yeah, we all love Harvey for sure.
Oh, this isn't for the interview or anything, but I did read your article you wrote about Hardy Fox's ARP Odyssey. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I'm the Residents are my favorite band in the whole world. That's
Oh,
just 'cause-
that's amazing.
yeah,
It's right behind me. My
yeah.
fingers pointing right
I
there.
think I recognize it. It's
Yeah.
really yeah.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, the residents are so important to me as well.
Oh
Um, that to me always sounded like cartoon music in a lot of ways, you know.
yeah,
So obviously that influence like made perfect sense for me as a composer in cartoons. It seemed so fitting, you know. And I've talked to them about it, you know, like why didn't you do more music for TV projects or
yeah. They
animation?
did. There's this one thing that I know of that they scored. I think it's called Lower Bob in the. I think it's called Slow Bob in the Lower Dimension,
Oh
and it
wow,
was a short film for MTV, and they
yeah,
scored
yeah,
it and did voice acting in. And
that's
apparently,
great. I didn't. Know that.
it's really good, and it's on
Yeah.
YouTube and HC and whatever.
Have you had a chance to see the residents live?
I saw them in February, actually.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's my only
They-
time I ever saw them because
Yeah. I saw them 2 weeks ago. They were doing a dress rehearsal for this thing called God in Three Persons that just happened in New York. But I saw it up in the Bay Area, up in San Francisco.
yeah,
Always amazing, always a treat to be around them and to see what they do. A constant source of inspiration for me and for you too, I'm sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So,
Uh, yeah.
what do you
So,
want to know?
well, I'll get to my first question. Okay. What do you think defines animated sound for you? Like, what? is it?
God, I mean, it really is a broad question, right? Because
Yeah.
you consider animation, it's like it's not necessarily one thing. It's a style of telling stories, right? It's like saying paintings. It's like there's a million kinds of paintings.
Mm.
The stuff that I gravitate towards are cartoons, and I mean that in the traditional sense of cartoons. I love, I was brought up with the Looney Tunes and that kind of thing. The music of Carl Stalling, which was the musical director
Yeah.
for the golden age of animation, and Carl Stalling, and by extension Raymond Scott, the other composer, who a lot of his music was used throughout Looney Tunes. Um, Repeat the question one more time before I start
I
going off
said,
on a tangent.
what defines animated sound for you? I've been really
Uh,
also I've been doing a deep dive on Raymond Scott's stuff
oh
since
yeah.
starting this.
Well, for me, Carl Stalling music and Raymond Scott music is sort of to me, that defines animation, the sound of cartoons and animation. There's a sort of a schizophrenic quality to the way they wrote music that could go in multiple directions very quickly, jumping into 30 different emotions in the course of a minute. Just the speed in which they could just turn left and right and backwards and forwards and express different feelings with the instruments. It's just tremendous to me. That's always been like the goal. Like, can I reach the height of Carl Stalling? And the answer is always no, but you always try. That's sort of the trajectory. You have to have something to aim towards. And of course, Raymond Scott as well. Just what's more fascinating about Raymond is that he did not write music for cartoons. His music just so happened to be used in a lot of cartoons. His He was just wired in that sort of crazy cartoony language before it even was a thing. And yeah, that for me is what defines the sound of animation. I mean, at this point, animation has become a lot of things. I mean, pop music could score a cartoon just as easily as a Carl Stalling score, and it means a lot of different things to different people. But again, I'm sort of rooted in that classic sound, and then the influences that I've brought, which have been from stuff like The Residents and punk rock and anything unconventional, frankly. And I think something about animation is that there is room for a lot of strange experimentation and unusual things. And that's why my influences, like stuff like Devo or Oingo Boingo or The Residents, I keep pointing up because I'm looking at a poster of them right in front of my desk.
I've got a poster of them right over there.
Really? Okay, good. So, um, yeah, that sort of seems to fit so well with animation too. So that's a big thing for me. The quirkiness and the strangeness of this music, it fits so perfectly in a lot of animated projects too. And sometimes you don't get those projects, but when you do, it's wonderful. Harvey, we got to do a lot of cool, weird stuff. I even got to use electronic Raymond Scott music on a Harvey Beaks episode. We licensed a song from an album called Manhattan Research. And I did variations of the themes, Raymond Scott themes. It was really great. I felt like Carl Stalling in a way, but for a whole different aspect of Raymond Scott's career. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd heard I'd seen recently you put Powerhouse in a SpongeBob episode.
Right. That was another great example of going back to my personal animation roots and taking that music. I mean, the fact that SpongeBob had the good sense to even want to license that music, which is so important. I wish more people cared about that stuff. And then for them to call me, which is already like a tremendous honor, because SpongeBob, arguably one of the most important animated shows, children's shows of all time. So yeah, it's been amazing. I do not take it for granted that I've had the honor to work on that show and put Raymond Scott's music in that show, which is, I could pretty much die after that. It's really that much of an honor. It's insane.
Was it just for that one episode? Because I saw it was here on the credit.
I've worked on a few more, but that's the only one that
Yeah.
we used Raymond Scott on. But I've got to do some other interesting things on some other episodes that even haven't aired yet. Yeah, it's another amazing team of artists that are so creative and so trusting as well. Like they liked my stuff enough where they said, we want you on the team. And that's a really big deal because, SpongeBob has a tremendous history of music already. Like the music is perfect. They don't need me. Um, in fact, it's like I try to interject myself as little as possible because they have this wonderful library of what we call needle drop, right? It's sort of like pre-existing songs that we use over and over. And if you hear SpongeBob, they use these great classic tunes
Yeah.
and a lot of the Hawaiian music, and they've had great composers already. Um, but for me to come in and have to compose a few original things, it's very daunting. It's very it scares the crap out of me, right? Because this show is perfect on its own. It doesn't need my help. But it's been successful and it's been really exciting to do it. And then I'll be doing more later this year as well.
That's good. That's
Yeah,
yeah. Um, yeah. I sometimes when I'm trying to write for
yeah,
fiction and stuff for my own personal interests, I would put
yeah.
on the SpongeBob soundtrack on shuffle and let the song determine the mood of a scene.
Oh, yeah, right. That's
Yeah.
great. You're a composer, right?
No, I wish. I don't have any actual. I own.
Mhm.
I like to say that I'd very much confuse Sherlock Holmes because in my room I have a keyboard and I have a guitar, but I
Right.
can't play either of them. he'd assume I'm a,
Right,
whatever.
right. That's great, though. I mean, no, I mean, it's pick them up and, experiment with them, enjoy them. I remember John Lennon had a quote where he said, I'm an artist. If you give me a tuba, I don't know how to play it, but I'll get a tune out of it somehow.
Yeah,
Meaning like, he'll bang it out with a stick or, do something else. But, if you're a creative being, you find ways to extract music and art out of any object around you, even if it's a out-of-tune guitar in your room that you haven't, really played with.
yeah. It's
So
an yeah, it's an acoustic guitar with a hole in the back, which is
that's perfect enough. I've,
yeah,
I've used I've used worse instruments in projects of mine, so no shame in that at all.
yeah. Um, next question says um Carl Starling, his scores, they famously worked in like conjunction with Trek Brown's sound effects.
Right.
Um, do how does your or does your do your scores work at all with the sound effects? Like when you're scoring a thing, do you
Yeah.
have the sound effects in already there for you or not?
That's a
I
great
guess.
question. It's there's a whole like let's say on any show I've worked on, let's say SpongeBob or Harvey Beaks, they give me the episode as soon as it comes back as a locked picture from the editing place, and there's nothing on it. Just there's the dialogue, and even that's not complete all the time. Sometimes it's like test dialogue that maybe one of the directors did. So I'm not hearing any sound effects on it, and I think in much the same way the sound effect person is not hearing my score. So we're sort of treating it independently of each other, trying to feel the sound as much as we can. And then once it gets to the mix house with the showrunner or director, they listen to everything and then make decisions on the fly a lot of the times. Sometimes a sound effect will work better than whatever I wrote. In other cases, what I wrote may work better than the sound effect, or maybe a combination of both, where one is mixed a little higher or lower. But that's generally a creative decision with the directors, and sometimes they know in advance, like we know we want this to be a musical thing rather than the sound effect of an explosion. We want it to be this musical. I don't know, that's just an example. But yeah, it always varies, and if we had the luxury of time, maybe I would work with the sound designer and hear what he or she or they are doing, and I would try to complement what they're doing. But because animation and television work has a really rigorous schedule where we have to turn in things in, let's say, 5 days. There's not much time for that. I have to sort of work quickly and without the luxury of hearing a lot of stuff. Even sometimes not even seeing all the animation. Sometimes I'm looking at like rough animatic forms, like the sketches of something before it's even done. So yeah, does that kind of answer?
That was, I didn't really know what I was gonna get with that one. So
Right.
okay, I think you might have already answered this one, but who are your like inspirations for scoring, like in the soundtrack world?
Um, well, I mean, there's the artists that originally made me want to compose music, and that came from being a young guy and watching, let's say, Rugrats. And at that time, I didn't realize what I was hearing. I didn't realize it was Mark Mothersbaugh, the guy from Devo. Same thing with a TV show that was called Pee-wee's Playhouse. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I know.
Pee-wee's Playhouse was another show of my youth that was tremendously influential because I was hearing this really wacky, strange music and not realizing that I was hearing Danny Elfman and the Residents and Mark Mothersbaugh all on this one show. Paul Rubens, Pee Wee Herman, had the good sense to bring these amazing talent onto the show and have them score, a kids program. And it wasn't until later that I realized what it was, but it played like a subconscious influence that was huge. And we're talking about bands that are, these are subculture bands like, Devo, Oingo Boingo, Danny Elfman's old band. They were strange groups. They weren't the normal, they were off the beaten path. But again, it fits so perfectly with children's programming because it's so imaginative and so unusual. So that influence is big for me. Anything surreal or unusual in music and in art as well. I'm a big fan of surrealists and like Salvador Dali as a visual artist is a big influence as well. Because the lessons we learn from that are how to think differently, I suppose, how to make unusual choices. And one of the big challenges as a composer, I think, is being brave enough to present something different. But because we live in a world where it's so hard to find this kind of work. I mean, I don't take it for granted that I'm lucky to be doing this work in this business. A lot of people that come in, like once that door opens, you don't want it to close on you. So you play it safe. You do what is expected, what you think might work. But you can't do that. You really have to always take risks. And if you have some oddball idea, something totally new or different, you have to present it and not feel embarrassed. You have to walk in and say, okay, I got this. I don't know if this is going to work, but this is what I think would be great. And you sit back and you hope for the best, and you can't get too married to your work either. Like if a director doesn't like what you did, you have to be willing to accept that right away. Like, okay, great, I'm gonna try again because you have this limitless well of ability in you that you should be able to channel new ideas all the time. I don't feel like I'm gonna dry up. I always feel like I could come up with something new. If you threw away my entire score, I could come up with a whole other thing if I have to. And so yeah, risk taking. We're talking. I think the question was what influences and why, or something. I'm sorry,
yeah,
I go on these sort of tangents.
soundtrack influences.
Yeah, yeah. Anything unconventional, punk rock, weird new wave stuff, the Residents, and not so much film composers. Frankly, it's so weird. Um, I'm not like classically trained, right? I'm not. I didn't grow up with classical music. Besides Looney Tunes, that's where I kind of learned most of my classical music. But I admire and respect, people like John Williams, of course. The way he does themes is perfect and beautiful. And of course, Danny Elfman's scores have always been influential. But yeah, I mostly like. I mean, if you ask me what I listen to like on a regular basis, God, what's the last thing I put on? I don't know, like a Ramones record or something. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry for going off in different directions. I don't.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's usually my answer when someone asks me what.
Yeah. What do you listen to? What do you like to listen
What do
to?
I listen to? Well, I listen to the Residents all the time.
Right. That's great. I love hearing that. I'm
Yeah.
I'm actually performing late March at a festival, and I'm doing a couple of residence pieces. So that's going to be exciting. Yeah.
Anything you can name drop here?
Oh yeah, I'm doing Discomo, which is sort of the disco version of Eskimo, like a 7-minute version of that. So it's going to be fun. And
Oh,
I'm doing music from Spongebob and maybe Harvey Beaks as well, live. So that should be interesting.
I remember this is for my own interest, but I
Yeah.
remember because CH Greenblatt, he has a Tumblr blog, and I think he once in a private message to one of my friends said that they were considering a LP of the Harvey Beaks soundtrack. Did you ever know about that, or was
Oh,
that
it's
just something in his head?
no, that's something that I was pushing for as well. I mean, it's something that we all wanted. Um, but the reality is that I think, in the general sense, maybe there was not enough interest from the network to push for
Yeah,
that. Um, I still want to push for it. I would love to do it. I would love to do a vinyl release, like maybe a limited edition. I don't know, 500 copies. I'd get Carl to do original artwork for it. We could sign and number them, put them up
yeah,
online for record store day. But that'd be amazing. I mean, I think
yeah,
there'll be a time and place for it. Maybe it's not now, but I think the show is still means stuff to people, and I think people are discovering it all the time. So that's kind of nice. Maybe it'll become more popular one day. Who knows?
cult
But
class.
yeah, yeah, we'll see.
The blue and green swirled vinyl would be perfect.
Exactly. That's the idea, right?
Yeah,
That'd be perfect. Yeah. Yeah. We talked about exactly that kind of thing. A nice gatefold with
yeah,
original art and everything, and but again, it's one of those things. If we don't have the support or interest from the network, it's really hard to get that going.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think I found this out recently when I was listening to some of your scores for the interview. But it
Yeah.
seems like for the theme song of Harvey Weeks, you worked with Bob Mothersbaugh of Devo. Is that true? Or
Yeah,
is
that's
that
true. Actually, that actually happened. It was a simple thing, really. It was just there was 4 chords on guitar that happened in the middle of the song, and I was such a fan of his and Devo. I just reached out and asked him, "Hey, would you play 4 chords for the theme song?" I mean, it probably wasn't necessary, but it just meant a lot to me personally
Yeah,
to have his hand in something I did
yeah,
for all eternity, right? So yeah, I had him on it as well as Steve Bartek from Oingo Boingo, Danny Elfman's bandmate, and also David J from Bauhaus played bass on it. And it was kind of a thing for my own
yeah.
ego, for lack of a better word,
That's
to have them to
okay.
have them involved. It was just like it was a dream because these are, when I was a young guy in school, like my school folders had their logos all over. It said Devo here and Bauhaus over here and Oingo Boingo, and it's just sort of fulfilling my own personal fantasy and dream to have them involved. And I'm also very honored to call them friends too. So it's great.
Yeah, Bob. Um, I'm not too familiar with Bauhaus and Oingo Bongo. Like I know who they are, but I haven't really listened to them.
Yeah,
But Bob Mothersbaugh, he's like one of the best. He's in my mind, he's the best guitarist. He's
I know
the
what you
best.
mean.
Yeah.
He's wonderful, and I wish he did more. But he's doing a lot of scoring on his
Yeah.
own now. Yeah,
I
he's
know.
very busy.
Yeah. He I think he did the Rugrats with Mark. If I'm not.
Correct. They did it together. I think at a certain point, Mark handed it all off to Bob because Mark got busy with a million other things. So,
Yeah.
you know that they're making another Rugrats?
Oh yeah, I think I heard they're making both a movie and a TV show, or at least
Correct.
that's the rumor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I gotta
I
ask about
Yeah, I think Mark is scoring it. I don't
the
know.
the movie or the TV show.
Both. I don't know.
Right. Well, if he's not, maybe I'll put a phone call in and see if they need anybody.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
but yeah. So the next question
Yeah.
is about another personal favorite show of mine that you've worked on. It's about making Fiends. It's about how did you get hired on making Fiends? Because I think that's your first credited animated role, maybe.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I spent my entire 20s working a regular job. I wasn't a composer. I mean, I wrote music my entire life as a young man, but I didn't go to college. I didn't study music. After high school, I was just working regular jobs, like regular day jobs. I ended up in a cubicle working at a university called UCLA, and I was just always trying to make music in my spare time. Like most friends I had, music is a hobby. It's not, it's so hard to become, make a living as a composer or a musician. It's nearly impossible. It's kind of like winning the lottery. So I had this dream in my head. I wanted to compose for cartoons. I made a CD of music for non-existent cartoons, basically. It was like 25 tracks of just strange instrumental music. So being at UCLA, one of the advantages of physically being on that campus is that they had a film department. And I would walk over there during my lunch hour. I'd leave my cubicle, walk over there, and they had a bulletin board. This is all kind of pre-internet. And I'd put little ads up on the wall that said, like, composer looking for animated projects. Like if you have a student film, I'd love to be a part of it. And I would meet people like that. But one day I went to a screening, and they had like a lot of the student films being presented, and they had a film called The Bad Plant, uh, about a plant that was like carnivorous and it ate somebody. It was something really vicious and strange, um, and it was Amy Winfrey's first short film. I don't think it's even online. Um, but of all the films I saw, that's the only one that stayed with me. It made a really huge impression. Maybe it was like a minute long, if anything. But I remember I was leaving the screening and I had a bag with my CDs. And as I was walking out the door, I stopped myself and I said, I should really try to find whoever made this bad plant. And I turned around and I asked somebody, I go, hey, who's Amy Winfrey? I saw the name in the program. And somebody pointed me and said, it's the woman over there talking in that group. So I kind of nervously walked over and I just tapped her and I introduced myself. And I gave her my first Ego Plum CD. I go, hey, I do music if you ever need anything. And, I wasn't going to do it. I actually was going to leave. But I'm glad I did it because a year or two later, I get a phone call or an email from Amy Winfrey that she's developing a series at Nickelodeon. And that was the first time I ever worked in a big show like that, And the good thing about it, the timing was that I was still active. I was still performing with my band. I had a live group. And like that week that she called me, I was having like a record release party. So she came to the show. She saw that I was active. I wasn't just sort of like, I didn't just do a one CD and disappear. I was actually an active musician and composer working and trying to make stuff happen. So I think that also was encouraging for her. Like, okay, this could be a good match. And the rest was history. I think I owe her for my own, almost for all the work I've been able to do, because she was the first person that trusted me enough with an actual Nickelodeon show. I mean, it's not just like doing a student film. There's actually millions of dollars being invested into these programs and marketing, and so yeah, that was the story behind meeting Amy.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, I
But
love that. Yeah.
It's special. It really is a special thing, and it makes me emotional even thinking about it because it's not. I always wonder what would have happened if I just left and I didn't walk back in there. It feels like like when you avoid a car accident and you're just shaken up, like, wow, what would have happened if I just accidentally turned the wheel to a little more? Or if I was 10 seconds earlier or 10 seconds later, I could have died or something bad could have happened. It's sort of like that feeling, like, what if I didn't do that? I like to think that I would have found success elsewhere, but yeah, it's really nice. She's great. I talked to her last week actually. Um, she's busy at Warner Brothers. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what she's up to, but the future looks good for her.
Yeah, because she just finished on BoJack Horseman. That show just ended, and I don't know how.
Right.
She
Have
was
you watched?
writer of that, I
Have
think,
you?
and maybe director. I don't
I
know.
haven't watched it. Have you watched it yet?
I've watched the whole thing from.
You recommend it?
Yeah. Oh, highly. The
Yeah.
first season, it's
Yeah.
it's like all first seasons of shows.
Right. Oh, that's great. I can't wait to see it. I'm surprised I haven't made the time to do it. But can you feel the Amy Winfrey quality to her episodes, or
Well, yes, I think they've
Yeah.
got those. It's some episodes definitely have like zany, wacky, out of
Right?
nowhere stuff, and that's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
what makes it's what makes BoJack. It's like the way it can so easily balance this dark, emotional stuff with
Right.
wacky, zany comedy.
Mhm. That's great. Yeah, I'll have to see it. I'll definitely make time to watch it.
Yeah, she also has this YouTube series, I think, that there's 2 episodes of called Welcome to Hell. And
Yes, that is
yeah,
great. I see that.
yeah. That people I'm in a Making Fiends group chat or whatever, forum
Yeah.
or whatever you want to call it, and we're talking about how, like, oh, now that BoJack's ended, do you think she'll have time to finish Welcome to Hell or whatever?
Right.
Yeah.
I uh, I actually called her about a Making Fiends thing. Um,
Hmm.
I'm like I said, I'm going to be performing pretty soon, and I had this idea of actually playing a song from Making Fiends live, and I wanted to do. Are you familiar like with Hatsune Miku, like that
Oh
Japanese?
yeah.
I,
So
I said, what, I said, what if we did like Charlotte, like because we have this big projection screen things. What if we did like Charlotte on the screen appearing and like singing a song while we play it live? So we're kind of talking about maybe trying to make that happen, but we'll see what happens.
that would be amazing. I love the songs from Making Fiends and all that.
Oh yeah,
That
yeah,
that
and
intro really.
she's we have to credit her for coming up with those songs because she's not necessarily like a trained musician, but she has all these melodies in her head. Sometimes she would just call me and leave me a voicemail with a song idea, just sort of like la 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 la, and she'll sing it with words, and it'll be like my voicemail. Then I'll take that and I'll sort of come up with chords and arrangements around her little melody, and that's how we wrote songs together.
Sort of imagining the voicemails having no context. Just
Right. It's kind of like that. It was kind of like that. It
yeah,
was great. I can't wait to work with her again. We have to do something for sure.
yeah. And Making Fiends suffered a kind of similar fate to Harvey Beaks in the end, sadly.
Right, it's so true. I mean, that's. But at the same time, those shows are challenging. They're not
Yeah,
palatable. They're not as easily digestible for people. And I'm happy to work with renegades and people like that
yeah.
are
It's
doing stuff that is not completely totally accessible. Um, it's great. I love Carl and Amy for those similar reasons that they do what they want to do.
yeah. Yeah. Nickelodeon they've gained a little bit of a reputation recently for axing most shows, unless they're like The Loud House or SpongeBob or whatever.
Right.
But
Well,
I'm sure there's no bad blood.
no.
No,
Listen.
definitely.
I'm in a position where I I'm very grateful for the
Yeah,
network for hiring me for all this stuff. I continue to work with Nickelodeon, and if something like that happens, I have nothing bad to say because I am happy to work on whatever I can work on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I
I'm
get it. It's
very
just part of
yeah,
the game.
very excited to hear your Cuphead score when that eventually.
Oh, me too. I can't wait to
Um,
hear it
yeah.
as well. It's overwhelming. We're gonna have live musicians for it.
Mhm.
Um, Very 1930s style
Yeah.
kind of score. I was just telling Danny Elfman about it in December, and his son is a big fan of the game, and he loves it too. So it's pretty exciting. He thought it sounded great. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. That because the game soundtrack is it's
It's
amazing.
great. Yeah, they did
Yeah.
such a great job on it. But we're 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 going to the roots of even what that composer was listening to, right? It's like
Mm.
the Duke Ellington, the Cab Calloway, the Raymond Scott, like all these things inspired that game and the amazing work that the composer did. We have to do the same thing. We have to go to the
Yeah.
essence of it, And I hope we could also use some of the stuff that he did on the score because there's some themes and things that are very familiar to the fans that they'd want to hear as well. So we'll definitely try to touch on that.
Yeah. Really
Yeah,
astounding stuff.
yeah,
Um. Well, my my last question that I have written down
yeah.
is are you working on anything currently? And you've already told me that, but
Yes,
you can say it again.
I'll say it again. I'm currently, and today I was working on Cuphead, the animated series. Um, that's really exciting stuff. I'm also, I guess I could say I'm working on something called Kamp Koral,
Mm,
which is the Spongebob
yeah.
spin-off. And maybe you could assume I'm going to be working with Carl Greenblatt on his new show.
Oh, that
I was
Hanna-Barbera thing.
correct. Yeah, I was just at Warner Brothers meeting with him. Um, that's super exciting as well. That's this massive universe that means a lot to a lot of people. These characters are classic, and I think it's amazing that this was handed to Carl because he has the perfect sensibility for it, and for him to be in charge of the Hanna-Barbera universe is just wonderful. I
Mm,
I couldn't imagine it going to anybody else. It's going to be great in his hands. I already was looking at all the art on the walls, some of the concepts, some of the story ideas. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, I mean, Carl is amazing at that stuff, and he's so great to work with. Uh, an absolute joy and a gem of a person. So yeah, I have a really busy few years ahead of me between all that, and yeah, I don't need any more. That's enough for now.
you're done. You're not
Yeah,
done.
yeah. So between that and trying to do more live things, I want to try to perform a little
Yeah.
more and do my own music as well as trying to play some of my score stuff in the live context. Um, I was kind of inspired by what Danny Elfman did when he started performing live, doing his live.
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah. He's playing at Coachella, which has shocked a lot of people. Like
Absolutely, yeah.
people are saying making like memes and stuff of him being like, "Open up the pit. This one's the theme from Goodwill Hunting," or
That's
whatever.
really that's really really good. Yeah, I can't wait to see what he does. But
Yeah.
obviously he works on a massive grand scale with big 80-piece orchestra or whatever. I'm doing something with a smaller ensemble, mostly electronics. A lot of stuff like you're looking at back there, theremins and synthesizers, whatever. Um, but yeah, he's amazing. He's unstoppable.
Yeah, whenever I'm thinking of the big composers of the 21st century or the 20th or whatever it
Yeah.
is,
And what are
it's
we?
him and it's John Williams and then it's him. But
Uh, I agree with you. Yes.
even then, Danny Elfman's scores they mean more to me as a dumb cartoon loving millennial. Not millennial. I'm not millennial. Gen Z Gen Z than John
Right.
Williams scores. Yeah.
Right. No, yeah, I mean, Danny's just tremendous influence
Yeah.
for me. All that's meant the world to me. And, to actually meet him is just a tremendous honor as well. I've never met John Williams. I have a friend that interviewed him, and he did call me to say, hey, do you have any ideas for any questions for John Williams? And I had one. I said, ask him if the music from the Creature Cantina in Star Wars: A New Hope was influenced by Raymond Scott.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did you get any response?
Yeah. He asked him, and he said, first of all, his father, Johnny Williams, was a drummer who actually played in the Raymond Scott band.
Oh.
So there's already a connection, an actual connection. John Williams, the composer we know, as a child would sit in at Raymond Scott rehearsals, just sitting on the floor, like listening. So it's incredible.
That's
massive, right? So he said that while he doesn't want to credit it exclusively to Raymond Scott, he was definitely influenced by Raymond, but a lot of that big band music of that era influenced the Creature Cantina music.
Yeah,
so
he's those John Williams and particularly his Star Wars score. They're like, there's a lot of musical references in them. I've seen whole videos dedicated to every musical reference in Star Wars or whatever.
Right. No, I know. It's so amazing. I mean, I love the way he could weave in and out of themes. Like that's something I try to almost study, and by study I mean just listen to.
Yeah,
I can't study. I just listen.
Yeah, well, same, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Just talking about John Williams, I guess my favorite Star Wars piece of music is the Jawa music or whatever. Like just on Tatooine, where it's like.
Oh yeah. That's really good.
It's so.
I love that, and also like when the Ewoks first appear in Return of the Jedi, similar kind of a weird.
Yeah.
To it.
The best scores for little people, I guess.
That's really funny. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And and listening to the stuff that Williams is quoting in those songs is just, in finding more about that, that's opened me up to more classical stuff, and it's really
right. In a lot of ways, people like Williams and Danny, like you're only as good as your influences too, right? Like they have the good sense to quote. Some will say rip off, some will say quote, pay homage. There's different ways to put it, but the point is, like they are referencing really cool stuff. Like when Danny Elfman wrote the music for Pee-wee's Big Adventure, like referencing Nino Rota scores from Fellini movies and applying that to like an American comedy in the 80s, it's like nobody had done that. It was so original. So yeah, maybe he is borrowing from Nino Rota, but he was the first to borrow and apply that to these kind of movies. So it makes him a genius regardless of how you want to look.
In this residence group I'm in on Facebook, someone posted this, I think it was like a Strawberry Shortcake cartoon or whatever, and there was a bit of it in the score that sounded just like Smelly Tongues, and I was like, that's great. Other people I've shown it to are like, that's not Smelly Tongue for them. Like, I can hear it. I can't remember what it was though.
That is so cool. I should do more. I should sneak in more Residence rips into cartoons.
Yeah, you can put that Discimo riff into anything, surely.
Oh, right. Yeah, that'd be good for a horror movie, probably.
Yeah.
So, that's great. How did you hear about my Hardy Fox thing? The whole.
Well, the residents posted it to their website.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know if it was. And I spent a bit of time, searching up residents and going from most recent onwards.
Understood, right? So you already knew who I was from the other shows, probably.
I knew, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, and I got a little bit of bragging rights. I knew who this guy was before he posted that.
That's great. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad. There's like a connection between all these things because to me they seem like cartoons, residents. Like they make perfect sense to me, but I feel like to anybody else, there's no connection between Hardy Fox and Harvey Beaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there is to me.
Yeah, HF and HB.
Right.
Yeah. They did a what was it like emailing with Hardy Fox, I guess, is a good question.
It's scary. I mean, I mean, you've read our exchange essentially in the article I wrote, but I was always very tentative and very respectful. Um, considering the identity thing, like
Yeah.
I
It's
always,
very
yeah, I would say it's delicate, and I would say I would always refer to the residents in the third person. I thought that was always important
yeah,
in my
that was
mind to respect the concept of anonymity and the theory of obscurity, all these concepts that they were all about. I'll never, to this day, like I always consider the residents a separate entity than the individuals.
yeah.
And
Well,
I think it's
that's kind of what they ended up doing with the Charles Bobuck and the Randy Rose and all that.
right. Yeah, that was interesting, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was always these really polite exchanges, and I was always very reverent and respectful, and always speaking like a more of a fan than a colleague, frankly, because I was just in complete admiration. And when I remember meeting uh, the president of the Crypto Corporation, Homer, for the first time. I remember meeting him for the first time and not being able to speak.
I wouldn't be.
Yeah, I even had to tell him, I go, Homer, I'm at a loss for words. I don't know. And he just kind of smiled and kind of, nodded, like kind of implying like, that's okay, it's fine, you'll be fine. But yeah, it was that emotional for me to meet, and to get to know them the way I did.
It's I'm constantly at heaves with the identity thing because and I hate to admit this, I'm a frequent editor of the Residence Wikia.
Okay. Yeah.
They have a Wikia, and I'm always like, for an hour a day, I'm like, I gotta add stuff, add
Right.
albums. I'm a bit
Right.
of an archivist or whatever. But like
Oh, good.
sometimes like there was this thing I found out about recently, just out of nowhere, and it's called Media Burn, and it's an event that was done by this art collective called Ant Farm,
Okay.
and acting as acting. It was this event from the mid '70s where the Media Collective drove a car into a bunch of televisions.
Right.
And they had someone dressed up as John F. Kennedy and two security guards next to him.
Yeah.
And the two security guards are very obviously both, members of the Cryptic Corporation. It's Hardy Fox and Homer Flynn on the other side. And so when I was posting about that in the wiki, I was like, who knows?
Interesting.
I can
Yeah.
send photos from that if it's interesting.
Right. How do you personally feel about, the fact that Hardy Fox at a certain point finally just kind of came out and declared, what he did, that he was the principal.
I got into the Residence after he'd already done that.
Yeah.
When actually I first read it, I read it in the bottom of the Residence Wikipedia article where it says Hardy Fox has claimed responsibility for the Residence, and I didn't know who Hardy Fox was, so I was like, who the frick's that?
Right.
Some weird musician from the 2010s.
Yeah.
And like, Hardy Fox, Charles Bobuck, what?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, sometimes I refer to Charles Bobuck as like a side project by the Residents, and then Hardy Fox is a side project from that. well, not aside from it because he's a person, but
Yeah.
his work under that name. Also, I'm just going to send a photo from Media Burn,
Yeah.
where you can clearly see Hardy Fox at least on the left, and Homer facing the back on the right.
Oh.
Yeah, and this is from around 1975. There's clearer photos of it.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like I love bringing it up to Resonance fans because like no one knows about this.
Yeah.
It's just completely, yeah.
Where did this happen? San
This I
Francisco?
don't know. I don't actually know where it happened, but there's a.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess it happened in San Francisco because that's where they're all hanging out.
Wow, this is wild.
Yeah, it's like it just goes to show that like there's always something that these people have done that you're like, what?
Right.
This,
No, yeah. They're just artists all the time.
yeah, just living, being,
Living, yeah, being who they are.
yeah,
You know, that's amazing. I love that.
yeah.
I gotta, how do I keep this picture so I don't delete it? Can I just
I'm
drag this? Maybe email me later if I,
okay.
this, yeah,
I'll try.
that's,
There's better pictures and there's video footage,
yeah,
but it's just I don't think that I've seen any photos of them from this period before.
right, right. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's
Really
just
love
I
that.
don't even remember how I found out about it, honestly.
Right.
Just one of those
So
things.
great. I'm glad you're such a fan, and I'm glad you edit the online presence because we need that. We need it's like an
Yeah,
important piece of history.
yeah,
I feel like you're doing your part. I do my part in helping preserve the legacy of the residents by putting it in my work wherever I can. Stuff with Raymond Scott, like I feel like I have a duty to preserve uh, this music, and even if it's through my own filter and put it out there. And if people discover me, if young people discover my work from a cartoon and they like it, maybe they'll research who I am and learn about
mm,
Raymond Scott, Carl Stalling, the Residents, and all the things that inspired me. It's sort of that's how we keep music relevant and alive. And in the same way, spending an hour every day editing a Wikipedia article or whatever, or sharing these photos is part of this work as
yeah.
well.
It's really, it's important history, I guess you could
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Yeah,
What
especially
made
the
you
yeah, fine
what
stuff.
made, what made you even attracted to the Residents' music in the first place? Like, why did that speak to you? Because I'm always wondering, like, what happens to people that sets them in that path of this unconventional art?
Yeah, it's actually me and someone who I used to like, you know, a friend of mine from long
Yeah,
ago. We used to be really into comedy music, like
yeah,
just weird, funny music, and we'd have a band where we did like fake improv songs,
yeah.
and we made a Spotify playlist of our favorite weird comedy music. And in the little suggested section, there was
Mhm.
Boots from Meet the Residents. And I
Yeah,
listened to Boots with my friend, and we were like, this is perfect. And we didn't know it was even part of a larger album. Because you know how
right.
it segues into Numberone or whatever? We
Hmm.
just heard the Numberone keyboards coming and then cut out. And we were like, oh, it's
Right,
perfect. It builds up to something and then it's just gone. So we didn't know
right,
it was like. And then, I did a bunch of more research and I've fallen in love.
right. That's great. All right, it was meant to be.
It was meant to be. And
All right.
yeah, there's always one thing I think not enough people give credit for introducing into the Residents is the all of the videos from their Icky Flicks DVD got put onto YouTube officially, and a bunch of those have like millions of views.
Really?
Yeah,
That's
like
great.
especially the video of Constantinople that's from that DVD. It's got like dozens of thousands and millions, and they're all
That's
like
great.
everyone in the comment is like, "What the hell am I? Where am I?"
Right, right. That's
Yeah,
amazing. So
I don't
glad.
know. Yeah, I don't know if you knew about Icky Flicks or whatever, but yeah.
I saw Iggy Flips live. I remember when they
Oh,
did that concert. Yeah, and I had a DVD, and I really loved
yeah.
everything about it. It
That
was a
DVD.
great show.
Yeah, I love Icky Flicks.
Yeah, that's
Um,
a great gateway for residents, new
yeah,
fans. To kind of
yeah,
get a sampler of all the work.
exactly. Up to a certain point, at least.
I'm in about 5 minutes. I'm gonna have to wrap up only because I have to go. I'm going to see. Richard Alfman, the director of Forbidden Zone? Did you see that movie?
I did not see Forbidden Zone.
Please do yourself a favor and find the Forbidden Zone. It's directed by Richard Alfman, who's Danny Elfman's brother, and it's the first film that Danny scored before Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Uh, it looks like, it almost looks like Whatever Happened to Violet Fats. It's
Hmm.
black and white. It's a really bizarre film. Um, you might be over at 6, so
Okay.
I'm
What
going to
year
be
is
jumping. It
what
came
year
out
is
in
that?
81, so look it up. See if you can find it. Let me double check right now. Forbidden
Because
Zone.
I'm looking on IMDb. I think I got it from
Yeah, yeah,
1982. I think. Yeah.
yeah. There you go.
Amazing. I
So
love
look that
Fox. Yeah, I'll check that out at your recommendation.
up. It's important. So yeah, I'm going to go see him. And
Okay,
is there anything else that we need to cover before we log off? I just want to make sure you have
that's
what
yeah,
you
that's all
need.
the questions I had for my
You
thing.
think it's helpful? Do you think this will you could cobble this into
I
something
can
useful?
try. I can try. I mean, I'm kind of, I'm kind of hoping that the fact that I've got most of the other people in my class have just interviewed like their teachers and stuff, and I'm hoping that this
Okay,
will,
that's great.
forgive anything else that's
If you
poor in.
need if you need anything else, just let me know. I'm sure we could.
Yeah.
Now that I got this working and I'm not as crazy as I was the last few weeks, if we need to punch in anything else, just be happy to help.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Good. And it was good to talk to you about fandom
thank
and
you.
stuff. Yeah.
No,
Thank you.
I appreciate your interest and your passion for music and the residents and animated
Yeah.
shows and the shows I've worked on. It's really great. It's very flattering. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay,
Same to you.
I am heading out, and I will
Okay.
show you one last thing.
Oh, there it is. The
Yeah.
Rushmore. I love that. Love that poster. It's my
All right.
That's my desktop background.
Really?
Yeah.
And says a bag of stuff from the residents, which is
Ah.
a bag that when you bought something at the QB show, you put your stuff in that bag. So that
Yeah.
was great. That's when I first saw him when I was like 13 or 14.
I'd have loved to see QB. That would have been.
And up here, you probably can't see that, but that's a Mark
Oh,
Mothers
yeah.
residence original art, and then next door is the Beatles.
Oh, yeah. The
Yeah,
crawfish. Love. Yeah.
and right in the center there is the Hardy Fox ARP synthesizer
That's
in the middle of
amazing.
everything. Yeah. Okay,
Okay.
I'm heading out. I will talk to you next time.
Okay.
Take care.
I will. Thank you.
Mhm.
You too and all that. Okay.